Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to all my panel, Dr. Shahabuddin and Dr. Rahaya. It's a pleasure to have you in my Viva Defense Sessions. I am Nurul Nadiah Binti Ismail, final year student in property management. My final year project is regarding consumer lifestyle on buyer decision making in purchasing a house.
Content in my presentation today comprise of 10 elements, which is research background, problem statement, literature review, research question and objective, scope of study, significance of study, methodology, research framework, expected finding, and reference. Research background. In current situation, we can see the growing number of young generation population that is expected to migrate to the city. World Bank reported that about 90% for the whole population growth will live in the city. These situations happens to affect the current norm for housing demand. The changes in purchaser preference, socio-economic development, and advance of technology, as well as increase in the level of education and income among people have all contributed to the housing image evolution. We can see the various type of house being introduced in residential market such as semi-detached housing, gated and guarded, township development, eco-friendly housing. This lead to the need to differentiate targeted market by doing comprehensive market intelligence analysis by segmenting our consumers. Lifestyle characteristic. Lifestyle characteristic can be seen in the physical, social, and symbolic of the housing. Physical element for housing is determined by the housing style. Either have the need of privacy or security and surrounded landscaping, the availability of facilities. In aspect of social, is determined by the situation of neighborhood, ethnic, racial, and economic composition. From symbolic aspect, housing itself have the sense of identity and prestige value where the occupant can live their life to the fullest. Often we heard that home buyer is not only paying for the house, they pay for the lifestyle served in the housing area. Housing typology in Malaysia. Through the development of property sector in Malaysia, we can see huge difference for house image throughout the years. Back to the old days in 1950 seconds, housing supply is more to the traditional Malay house and shop house. It is influenced by the cultural heritage components and the buildings is just to meet housing basic need for shelters and protections. The design is affected by the Malay traditions and it is used as a symbolic of economic standard, cultural and environmental. Whilst today's housing development is more to the lifestyle oriented. It depends on the various complexity of pupil life. Home buyers have opportunity to choose their preferred house with consideration of their lifestyle and economic availability. They have more innovations and unique point in meeting to the market demands and populate the niches market. Buyers have high purchasing power and they are willing to pay for additional facilities and emphasize on the economic friendly feature. This is lifestyle theory framework that is constructed by Ashraf Muhammad Salama. He have divided lifestyle theory into three base, which is work base, attitude base, and status base. All these base will influence the need and the choice of housing in the market. Problem statement. From NAPIC data survey shows that countries overhang is at critical state where unsold housing keeps on rising through years. 49,619 units of housing is reported to be unsold in the first quarter of 2020. Type of housing that contribute to this statistic is first participated by the service apartment with 34.8% and followed by landed property with 30.9%, high rise with 30.1%, and shop office home office with 4.1%. Most of the unsold property were luxuries and high-end property. The supply of housing with house range more than 215,000 were considered to be unaffordable. Median income of household was noted to be 5,228 while median house price in market is 313,000 ringgit. with calculation of median multiple to measure the housing affordability resulted to be housing price in Malaysia is 4.9 times bigger than household income. The factor that contribute to the unsold property is identified because of the economic uncertainty, weak market sentiment, and poor planning by developer. This urged the importance to do property market to analyze the market demand and supply. Samuel Tan noted that housing style in Malaysia more preferred to landed residential property. The cost of unsold property seems to be affected by the supply of housing that is not in line with the actual demand population. This should be seen in terms of type of house, housing price, locations, and so on. Next is literature review. And in the first literature review is defining what is lifestyle. So, lifestyle is the activity and consumer time spending and the values and behavioral orientations. In market segments, lifestyle is a marketing segment used to analyze targeted consumer behavior and personality. In research practice, frequent measure using AIO variables, which is activity, interest, and opinions. Lifestyle in housing study is the analytic tool to understand buyer need. This is the example for factor that influence housing choice, but I'm doing content analysis. This is definitions for market segmentations, housing affordability, unsold housing. So market segmentations is marketing analysis by simply divide prospective buyer into group. Most use element by geographical, demographical, psychographic, and behavioral. Housing affordability in these sections to determine affordable house price for each household income categories, usually measured by median multiple, which is ratio between house price to income. In analyzing content analysis, I am informed that 73% of unsold housing were in the price categories of above 250,000. This is my research questions for my study that are linked to the research objective. My research question consists of three, which is the first one is what is the characteristic of lifestyle in housing. The second one, what is the factor influence housing choice? And the third one, how does lifestyle influence housing choice in market? My research objective is to identify the characteristic of lifestyle in development of housing. And the second one, to determine the factor influence housing choice. And the third one is to determine the relationship between the characteristic of lifestyle and factor influence housing choice. Next is scope of study. So my scope of study is based on Johor Bahru area, and my focus population is mainly to high income T20 and median income M40. My research study is on influence of lifestyle in housing purchase decisions. So, area of my study is mostly in property market. Significance of study. So this study is important to the contribution to knowledge to home buyers, developers, students and government sector. Contribution to the knowledge this research can added value on property market in providing a house. For home buyer, they can evaluate the requirements of criteria in making a housing selection decisions. As for developer, we have provided the guideline for planning and analysis of viability by taking into account the factor of home ownership by doing feasibility study. And students, they have understanding input in analyze the element affecting the housing sector marketing. As for government sector, they need to imply lifestyle factor in the residential developments.
Methodology stage comprise of literature review, which is analyzed from scholarly paper related to my study area through journal article, website, book review. Next is designing questionnaire based on 3 part of question, including respondent demographic, home buyer behavior, and last part I do linkered skill. Then part data collection is done by compiling all research study from academic journal for secondary data, and primary data by questionnaire distributions. Next, data analysis is done based on data collections. In my study, use quantitative method to analyze consumer behavior by analyzing frequency and cross-tabulation. Research framework, my aim for the study is to identify the influence of lifestyle segmentations to purchaser housing choice. For first, to evaluate the first objective, I collect secondary data and primary data by doing content analysis and descriptive analysis. To achieve my second objective, I also analyze from secondary data to come out with the factor that influence housing choice for questionnaire design and collect data through questionnaire distributions. Last objective is to analyze the correlation between two variables of housing choice and consumer lifestyle characteristic from data collection analysis. Okay, lastly, my first expected hypothesis is from objective 1. I expect lifestyle characteristic of consumer is determined by their work and routine activity, household attitude, and status level. While second objective, housing choice is influenced by the type of housing, locations, housing price, housing attribute, and neighborhood conditions. Last hypothesis, the study expected housing choice have a strong responsive toward consumer lifestyle behavior. Okay, my last slide comprise of reference. This is example of reference that I use to analyze and to do my research study. So that's all from me. Thank you for your time. Have a nice day.